Hello everyone, so today I want to address people's questions and concerns about my ancestry because that is a big deal. For some reason, it's a big deal. Not really, but I just like to exaggerate and pretend it is a big deal when it's not. And I've been getting a lot of questions, a lot of confusion. So some of the comments and questions, etc., that I get are saying that I'm not mixed. Some of them saying that I'm not mixed, right? Some of them say that I'm Hispanic. Some of them say that I shouldn't use the term Indian. Some of them say DNA is a lie. Some of them say that I said that everyone should look like me. And that's some of the statements I get, and some of the questions I get I don't remember. But let me try to remember and answer them. So I guess I'll start addressing the race part, the ancestry part. And well, I guess I'll kind of start from the beginning. So when I was little, I never learned about race. My parents never embraced the race. They never talked about race with me. I didn't even know what race was. I remember being in fifth grade, I believe, and I had to take a standardized test. And before the test started, they asked questions like, "What's your birthday? What's your race?" And to me, I didn't know any of that. And I remember that date I took it. I got sad. I wanted to cry because the test hasn't even started, and I didn't even know how to answer the questions. The test hasn't even started, and I already failed. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I already failed the test, and I haven't even started it. It's like they're asking me when's your birthday. I'm like, I don't fucking know when my birthday is. My family doesn't celebrate birthdays. Um, and then race, what the fuck is race? Some girl I asked, I told her I don't know what this means, and she's like, well, what's your race? And I was like, I don't know what it means. She's like, and then she told me, oh, you're Hispanic. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm Hispanic. You know what I mean? So then after that, I started identifying as Hispanic because she told me I was Hispanic. And she was Hispanic too, because I remember she's like, I'm Hispanic and you're Hispanic. And I think from what I remember, like, she had like brown hair. She was kind of light. I don't want to say light skin. Maybe she was light skin. I don't know if, or just white. She was either white or light skin. And she told me, you're Hispanic. We're both Hispanic. I'm like, okay. So are you still right Hispanic? From on there, I never told my parents, oh, mom, am I really Hispanic? Am I Hispanic? And I never asked those questions, to my parents, like, oh, what is this Hispanic thing? You know what I mean? To me, to my parents, it doesn't matter what race you are. Okay, so now that I address that, so I did use Hispanic as an identity for a couple of years because honestly, I didn't know what it meant. I didn't understand any of that. My mind was somewhere else. And I didn't care, you know what I mean? Who cares? And then when I got to high school, like middle school, it was a different vibe. And a lot of people thought I was Asian. I went from Hispanic to Asian, and a lot of people were calling me Asian, and they were calling me like Filipino and then Chinese. And I got mostly Filipino. And then I started identifying as Filipino. I was like, oh, I'm Filipino. And I didn't ask my parents again. I didn't tell them, oh, am I Hispanic or Filipino? I didn't even know, you know what I mean? I didn't ask them. I didn't bother to ask them. And so I was like, okay, I'm Filipino, you know what I mean? And then when I got to high school, people were calling me China. I was like, no, I'm Filipino. And then I started watching PBS a lot. And then I started watching about DNA, the human migration. And I was like, oh shit, then what the fuck am I? You know, so that's two identities I took over. Hispanic and then Filipino were two I identified as. So I started to learn more about Aboriginal people, Indians, etc. when I was in high school, the late high school years, like what's 11th and 12th grade, I don't know what's that called. And also through like PBS, they put a lot of videos, through what's that guy's name? Henry Lewis, something like that. I started learning about the Indians, and in Spanish class I started learning about the Indians, and for American like history, anything relating to English, there's never mention about any Indians, right? Like Indians, like I think the last time I heard about the Indians was in American history, where the Trail of Tears happened. It happened to some type of Indians. I don't know. I think like in the East Coast. I'm not really sure. I think it was in the East Coast. I don't know. That's the only thing I learned about Indians. And what's crazy is that I learned more about Indians in Spanish class. Spanish, what's it called? Spanish, like Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3. I learned about the Indians more in Spanish class than I learned in history class. I didn't learn anything about the Indians in English class, or what's that other class? History class. I learned more about Indians in the Spanish class. For history, I learned more about the Jewish than the Indians. You know what I mean? That's crazy how I don't know, whoever does the textbooks or whoever writes the what's it called? The guide, what makes you think that you're just gonna not even talk about the Indians, you know what I mean? Why are you gonna just write one page on them? And they don't, okay, here's what I hate. They don't even tell you where the Indians come from, you know what I mean? Where do Indians come from? They don't even tell you any of that. They never tell you anything in history. It's a bunch of bullshit. Well, now they do, right? But before they didn't. Because when I was in high school, they didn't teach you, like, oh, they come from here or over here. They don't. So, that's a. So, after watching the Ancestry films on PBS, that's when I started questioning what race I am. What is my parents' race? My parents, where do they come from? I started asking so many questions, and I wasn't really getting anywhere, because my parents, they don't care, you know what I mean? It's like, huh, they don't care. But I just was so interested that I started finding my own ways, started watching more films, and that's when I started to do more research, and I'm gonna share some of that research. The next question is, am I mixed? Yeah, you could say I'm mixed, however, I'm still more Indian than mixed, right? I'm like 80%, according to DNA, I'm 80% Indian, and like maybe 15% European. So if you want to look at it that way, yes, I'm mixed. If you want to, however you want to put it, you can put it as you want, up to the viewer. So one of the questions is, what race do I identify with? I don't identify with any race. I personally don't identify with any race. I know my race, but I don't identify with any race. And that's that. The next question, or the next statement is, are you Hispanic? You are Hispanic. And the answer to that is, no, I'm not Hispanic. I'm not Hispanic. You could say I'm Hispanic, but I'm not. That's. How am I Hispanic? That doesn't even make sense. Hispanic is not even a race. Why does it? A lot of people say that I'm Hispanic, but Hispanic is not even a race. There's three races and three main groups, right? There's the Asians, there's there's the Africans, and there's the Europeans. So which group do you fall into, right? For me, I fall into the Asian group, right? But I'm also an individual, right? So I fall into the Indian culture. So I am Indian. The next question I get it a lot is, am I Asian? Do my ancestors come from Asia, or are they native? And that confuses a lot of people, because when I say no, I'm not Asian, and when I say yes, I'm Asian, a lot of people get confused, because I, they tell me, that Indians come from Asia, right? I tell them they migrated through, like, either through boats from Asia, or through somewhere else, and then they say through, I think through, what's it called, the Alaska thingy, they went down, right? And I get that part, but what I say is, we're Indian, so that's our own group, right? Even DNA doesn't show that. For my family, we get 100% Indian, right? My uncle gets 100% Indian. My dad gets 100% Indian. They don't get any type of Asian, right? Like 20%. So that's what I try to say when I say that I'm not Asian, I'm Indian. We are our own people. We are not Asian. And do Aboriginal people come from Asia? Do my ancestors come from Asia? I'm pretty sure they did. You know what I mean? We came through. The Aboriginal people migrated all over. What type of Aboriginal people did we come from? I don't know. You know what I mean? For my family, they don't even know where they come from. You know what I mean? They don't know where they come from. So that's what I try to explain to some people when I say to them, I'm not Asian, and when I tell them, yes, I'm Asian. So that's, hopefully I cleared up the confusion with this video, when I say that I'm not Asian and when I say that I'm Asian. It's a big difference, right? Two differences. So another comment I get is that you don't need DNA to tell you if you're full Indian. You know what I mean? That you should already know. Okay, yes, you know what I mean? Like for me, I I was never talked about race, so I never knew, right? I never even knew my grandparents on my dad's side were full Indian. I never knew that we spoke different languages. I didn't even know that. You know what I mean? And you know, thanks to DNA, I was able to tell. So another comment I get is about ancestry. Ancestry. About DNA, ancestry, right? Versus, oh, you should already know if you're Indian, right? A lot of people say, if you're Indian, you should already know. You don't need DNA to prove this and that. And they say, it doesn't matter. Like, if some people say, if you're Indian, like, you should still be 100%. That's something else. They're going off topic. Like, I go off topic too, but, you know, I never knew I was Indian just because my parents never talked about race. They never talked about my grandparents. So I never knew anything, right? And I didn't really care. So I started watching films about ancestry. That's when I really started to care. And that's when I bought my first DNA test kit with 23andMe. And I tested and I was like, oh shit, I'm like 80% native. So I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I started comparing with other people. And a lot of people say that these ancestry DNA test kits are lies, That's not true, that's ignorant to say, why would you, the people that deny science, that's just, there is so much ignorance there, There's a difference between, I get it, ignorance is within everyone, but saying it towards science is there, you know what I mean? Versus saying something else, like, if there's science behind it, you can't just really disprove that. Now, on to my parents. So a lot of people get confused. I have four grandparents, right? And let's see. On my father's side, they're full Indian. On my mother's side, they're mixed. They're like African, Indian, and European. They're mixed, right? For them, you're gonna get like dark people, light skinned people, different eye color, different hair texture. That's how it is. That's how it's been for my mom's family. On my dad's side, you're gonna get, that's just their specific type of group there, right? You're gonna get the dark hair, the straight black hair, the dark skin, the brown eyes, the shortness of height. For them, they're short because they lack a lot of like the food that you need, right? They survive based on what they grow, based on what the environment gives them. For them, their lifestyle is different than most people. The only way they survive is by growing their own food. For them, life is different. For them, it's I'm going to the field to grow my own food to eat today or to save up for the months ahead. That's their lifestyle for them versus my mom's family lifestyle is different. It's like I'm growing my own food, but I have to sell it, I have to trade it. And, they have a lot of access to types of meat versus my dad's family, they don't have access to a lot of meat, they can't afford it, because they don't work, for them, they live like the Aboriginal lifestyle, My dad's family lives the Aboriginal lifestyle, and, a lot of people, when I tell this to people, they don't understand. They think, oh, that's not true, or when I tell friends, right, or family, my dad and his family did not have a home. They slept outside. And, they didn't have a home. A lot of people think, oh, Indians, they live like in a hut. They live like this, like that. I tell them no, I tell them my family did not have a home. You see the Indians' home, but it wasn't like that for them, you know. And it was like, it's the 70s, My dad was born in the 60s, going towards like the 70s, and he didn't have a home. In the 1970s, he did not have a home. Nor did my aunt, nor did my uncle. He didn't have your Indian home either, right? And for me, I still have a hard time understanding that. It's like, how can you not have your own home, right? It wasn't that long ago. So I think that's crazy that it wasn't that long ago. How many years has it been now since they didn't have a home? It's like 70s, 80s, 90s, the 20s, or the 2000s, and then five. So that's like almost 50 years, 50 years ago, my dad did not have a home. That is crazy. So one thing I noticed about my mother's side and my father's side is how they embrace their race. And I didn't really pay attention to it. And I started reading some stuff. But in my family, my dad's family embraces their race more versus my mom's. Since my dad's family is full Indian, they embrace it more, because they speak the language. They identify with the language, with the group. Their whole community, they're all the same people. They're like, oh, I am this, I speak this language. And they embrace it, right? They know their history, some of their history, right? They know their language. Versus my mom's family. They have no clue what their race is. They have no clue what race is. It's been eliminated. It's been eliminated off their timeline. And at first, I was wondering why. You know what I mean? But then when you look at back at history, slavery, how the Indians were treated, how the Africans were treated, and how the Europeans were treated too. I guess I don't know about Europeans, but you need to understand why. I understand why they don't embrace their race, right? They have to go through that struggle. As a mixed person fighting all them people, would you embrace your race? No, right? That's the struggle they try to do. I mean, that's the struggle they went through, and they try to eliminate that, right? So it worked. You know what I mean? My mom doesn't know her race. My grandma doesn't know her race. My grandpa doesn't know her race. Her brothers and sisters don't know their race. My cousins don't know their race. I didn't even know my race. They tried very hard to eliminate the race issue. You know what I mean? Because it was an issue back then. You know what I mean? So for my family, for my mom's family, it worked great. They don't know what race they are. So for anyone that thinks that people could live without race, yes, it is possible. If the government eliminates race, it is possible to eliminate that. I'm brown and I was not able to tell my race, what race I am. A lot of people don't know this, but, or maybe they do. I'm sure they do. Do I speak my native language? No, I don't. Do my parents speak their native language? No, they don't. My dad used to speak it when he was a child. His native language, he used to speak it, but he doesn't anymore. So there we go. No one in my family speaks their native language. We never learned it. And I guess a lot of people get confused, just because I don't speak it, they think, oh, I'm not. But, on my dad's side, everyone speaks their native language. How many cousins do I have and uncles and aunts that speak their native languages? Two of my grandparents spoke it, but they're dead already, right? My grandpa, my grandma spoke their native language, but since they're dead, I'm not gonna count them. My uncle, my uncle, my aunt, my uncle. That's four people there already. My cousin, 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 my cousin. So that's like 13 people already, or 14 people, and I have other cousins. So that's like, I've counted at least 14 people that speak our native language. They actually speak it. So that's 14 people in my family that speak their own native language. So yes, I'm Indian, everyone. Yes, I'm Indian. Why can't just people don't understand that?